Hi, and welcome back to another Fwoosh video breakdown. Today we are focusing on the Star Wars Black Series 6-inch action figure line with an early look at everyone's third favorite bounty hunter, IG-88. Of course, he is a member of the illustrious Gang of Six bounty hunters that are hired by Darth Vader in The Empire Strikes Back to hunt down Captain Solo and his friends and bring him back to the Empire. So being a part of that group automatically puts IG-88 in a spot where he's considered to be one of the many fan favorites from Star Wars, but also in the action figure realm. Ever since this figure was announced and shown in prototype form, he has been gathering a lot of online discussion that has a lot to do with his overall construction and articulation breakdown. So we wanted to bring you a little preview of that today. We will of course have a full look at the action figure with a written review up at thefwoosh.com very soon, but I wanted to take some time to kind of put this figure through its paces because I know there are a lot of questions about him out there. Now, a couple of months ago, I was at Toy Fair. I was at the Hasbro show, and I saw this figure not 2 feet away from me in their booth on display. Of course, you're not allowed to touch the action figures at those gatherings, so even being that close to the figure, I was not able to really get a good idea as to how his articulation scheme was going to work. So I'm glad to finally actually have him in hand to be able to see just what Hasbro has brought to him. So, I have to say, just overall, I was a little scared about this figure just because I didn't know if he was going to be very static without a whole lot of movement. But ultimately, like a lot of these figures, I think he probably turned out better than I was expecting him to be, but probably not as good as he could be. So the sculpt, of course, is very good. They've got him represented pretty well with his very slender, almost kind of awkward build with his very skinny legs and thick torso and conical head. But from an articulation perspective, he hits a lot of good spots, but there's some things left to be desired in some other spots. So from an articulation breakdown, he does have a swivel head, no back and forth movement. His character design kind of limits some of those things. So, the fact that he doesn't go back and forth or side to side at all, I don't think you can necessarily blame that on figure design. More, it's a character design. Now, he does have ball jointed shoulders, so it allows him to go up and down pretty well. The plastic is pretty soft right up at the top of the biceps, so I would be careful in making any movement there. Now, he does have this cuff around, so you can move his arm back and forth pretty well with that cuff, but you're not really going to get a whole lot of arm movement this way, up and down. Past right here, just because of the hindrance of the cuff right here. Now, he does have the standard Hasbro pin and swivel joint right here for his elbow, often called elbows. The joint's actually covered up by this little rubber coil right here, which does a really good job of actually hiding the joint. So that's cool, and it keeps up with the design of the figure. He does have, I guess, a rib cage crunch that allows him to, move his body back and or front and back like this, which actually you get a pretty good amount of movement right there. It does sit higher because of his design than it normally would with most figures, where it would fall right down around the abdominals. So he does get pretty good front and back movement there, and it's also set on a swivel, so you can move him side to side pretty much 360 as well. He doesn't have any wrist swivels or hinges, so his wrists are going to be pretty static from that standpoint. So that's a little disappointing to me. But also, he does have a standard T-crotch, so you're going to get his legs to be able to move front and back, but there's not going to be any outward side-to-side movement. I get that having a ball joint on this figure would really break up the actual design of the character, but I think this probably would have been a good instance where they would have been able to copy that hip hinge joint that's been very common in like Mattel superhero figures for a long time now, that would be able to give you a little bit of outward movement on his legs to help a little bit with the dynamic posing. He does have an upper thigh swivel on both legs. It works pretty well, not as cleanly as a lot of previous figures, and it is a little inhibited by the cords that move down, kind of from his hip down to below his knee. So you do get a little movement as far as that goes, but not a whole lot. Technically, he does have double knees. Now, again, that's a little bit limited by the cords and just by just how small the joints are. So you can get him into kind of a walking pose if you're careful with how you're going to pose him on there. But this guy's not going to be doing any high kicks or bending his knee with his heel being able to come back and touch the back of his leg anytime soon. So his ankles do spin 360 around, and it has the forward and back movement. So the articulation kind of follows what the character is. It feels very robotic. So I guess that's cool because it fits. Looking at IG-88 as a kid, to me, you could never tell if he kind of moved very, very stiffly, or he was just all of a sudden, super. He could make all these. He could move in all kinds of different ways that were not at all human. But if you're going by the action figure, it kind of goes with that kind of Tin Man stiff movement that would be your first assumption about the character. So the articulation, it's a little limited. That makes standing him in anything other than kind of an upright pose, it can be a little difficult, but it can be done. You can see more of his action pose possibilities in the still pictures that we'll have up on the front page, just because it's hard to get him into those poses quickly and get him to stay without him falling over. But if you take the time and actually set him, you can get him into a few different poses. As far as accessories go, he does come with, I guess, his little bandolier with the backpack on there. All the detail there is actually, pretty good. And his weapons do include his blaster pistol, which actually fits very well back into this holster back here, slides in very easily. And then he does have this crazy, I guess, machete hatchet that he would use while he was, hunting bounties. I guess if someone asks him to bring somebody back dead or alive, this would be the dead option, because it looks like it could probably hack just about anybody up to bits pretty well, but there is a nice storage spot for it also on the holster there. Now, if you're going to go, with movie scene accuracy, here's his longer rifle. On first glance, getting him to actually hold it seems to be a bit of a challenge, but if you notice, there's a tiny little peg on his left wrist that sticks out that corresponds with a tiny little hole in the actual rifle. So you can put the grip kind of in his clamp hand, and then if you put the rifle right down there via the hole on top of the peg, then IG-88 is able to hold his gun, pretty well. Like I said, that's going to be more of a static pose type thing on the shelf. But, being able to hold an accessory is always a plus as far as I'm concerned. So I was actually pretty scared when I first started messing around with the figure that he wasn't going to be able to hold his gun. But, he can. I think if you're like me or most people, you're probably going to put IG with his bounty hunter brethren. So here's a bit of a look with him next to the Boba Fett and Bosk figures that have come before him. So he does stand a little bit taller than both of them. For some reason, I think I kind of had it in my head that he was even maybe a little bit taller than he actually is in figure form, but this may be completely accurate. I'm not 100%, a slave to that kind of scale. But the Star Wars Black series, with the exception of Boosh, that Robo brought us a preview of earlier, has actually been scaled figure to figure pretty well. So I'm just going to assume that they actually got this scale with IG-88 pretty close. So that's really a look at him now. Like I said, there's going to be a full review up at thefwoosh.com very, very soon. But this figure I don't think is set to hit probably until sometime this summer. So this is a very early look at him. So my last word would be, once you get him, be a little bit careful at first posing him, because he does have some soft plastic, especially in the bicep region and whatnot. So be a little bit careful. But like I said, he turned out probably a little bit better than I expected him to be, but not quite as good as he could have been. Overall, I'm glad to add him to the group. We're halfway through the Bounty Hunters now, so bring on Dengar, Zuckuss, and Forlom, and we'll have probably one of the most fan-favorited groups that Star Wars has to offer in the Black series. So, give us a comment below. Tell us what you thought of this review. Like, subscribe, and like I said, check out the full review on fwoosh.com. And until next time, keep on fwooshing.